Morning.
Good morning, Reza.
How many times have you watched it back then? Particularly the first 20 minutes.
No, not too many. Enjoyed reviewing the game, and we did a debrief with the players yesterday, and yeah, it was good. Sometimes they're positive experiences, those moments. Sometimes they're not. So it was good, a good moment with the group.
I think you said before the Spurs match, when you were asked about Aston Villa, that sometimes when you go back and review games, when it hasn't gone so well, maybe it's not as bad as you thought. Sometimes when it's really good, you perhaps see things that could be improved. Have you still found areas for improvement?
Yeah, there's definitely areas to improve. I think that the quality of the goals was really high. I think that was probably the standout thing from the game. So you go through the goals, and they're high-level goals. There was nothing fortunate about them. They were really well executed by the group, so by the players. Yeah, I enjoyed watching those back again, and yeah, some standout moments there.
Your levels and your standards are really high, and they have been all season, but how important now is it with two big matches still coming up this week? Everton firstly, that there isn't a drop from what you did on Sunday.
Yeah, I think the big thing to probably note is they're totally different games. So Tottenham at home, with the atmosphere that the home supporters created, the tempo we started the game at was a brilliant thing to see. Now you go to a game a few days later, and the environment, everything about it is going to be totally different, and we have to adapt. So I think that's the key message from me to the players is, can we find a solution to whatever problem we have in the game and still find a positive result?
Looking closely at Everton, they are in trouble at the bottom of the table, but how have they changed since Sean Dyche's appointment, would you say?
Yeah, I think Everton have got some... It's got to be a fine, isn't it? Everton have got some very strong players. So yeah, they've had a difficult season, a change of manager. Sean's come in, he's vastly experienced. He's almost the perfect man for the job, because he's been there many, many times, and he's always found a way to keep his team up. Did an incredible job at Burnley, and now comes into Everton, and I think he has his style and his way of playing, and I think the positive thing for them is he has the players to execute that plan. So we're going to need to be very strong mentally, physically. We're going to need to be robust. We're going to need to stand up to the challenges that we face, and then show our quality.
From the outside looking in, it feels like Anthony Gordon didn't exactly leave Everton in the happiest of circumstances. How do you manage that situation with him tomorrow night?
Yeah, it's very difficult for me to comment on how he left, because I'm not party to what happened and what went on. I can only really comment on the player that I've seen, and he's been very, very good. Trained really well, very, as I've said many times, very passionate. Wants to achieve, wants to do really well in his career. So from that side, yeah, what happened at Everton I can't really comment on, but he's fine, and he's in a good place, and he's looking forward to the game.
He's still a very young player though, but you've seen, would you say, the maturity and the intelligence to deal with a difficult situation and what could be a tough atmosphere for him if he's selected and if he plays a part?
Well, I think the beauty of it is he's seen the Everton crowd many times. He's been at the club, was at the club a long, long time, so he will have no surprises about, what to expect. I'm sure he's seen other players go back and receive mixed reception, so hopefully he's seen enough to be robust enough to deal with what happens.
And just lastly, I know you've talked about this before, and last season I think when Newcastle played Everton, but can you just remind us why they were the club that you used to watch when you were younger, and how that happened, what the connection was? The
connection was the 1984 FA Cup final, the first game that I remember watching on telly. And the telly in those days was about that big, and you could barely see it. But it was that game I remember, and Everton won, and that was the team I followed from there.
Eddie, I think you sat here a couple of weeks ago and said we need to try and start games quicker. I'm guessing that message got through to the players at the weekend. You couldn't have envisaged a start to a game like that, I guess.
Yeah, I think the plan is always to start like that. You want the intensity, you want to take the game to the opposition. I think at home, by and large, we've done that really, really well. I think where we've had issues has been the last couple of away games where we haven't started in that fashion. So certainly that's something to take into this game and to learn from. But yeah, it'd be a great example of what we want. But you're not going to get that start every week.
Glad you didn't play for that draw that I said last week.
Well, that was stuck in my head, Keith, so I use that.
How pleased are you with the way the players have reacted to sort of adversity? You obviously lost to Villa the week before, they've hit back straight away. Similar sort of scenario in the cup final where they kind of put to the back of their minds quickly. How much is that something you work on, and how pleased are you to see that happen?
Yes, I think we talk about it and discuss it. I think working on it is very difficult because you're talking about the mental side of the game, and I think that's tough to do. But I do trust the leaders that we have in the squad. I think we've got a really good balance. I've said that, between youth and experience, between that feel we have in the squad. I think it's really, really special, and I think they have the ability to take a setback and a disappointment, but use it in the right way, and that's what we tried to do after the Aston Villa game. We tried to use the performance to help us for the remainder of the season. I think it was a useful reminder that if you do drop your standards, you'll get punished in this league, and we need to use that now for the remaining games we have.
Looked like you were maybe nursing a couple of knocks at the weekend. Fabian Schär came off towards the end, and Bruno looked like he was sort of being bothered by his ankle at times. How are the two of those?
Yeah, we've got a couple of knocks, so Bruno we think will be okay, no problems. Fabi's one that we'll have to check and make a late call on, and same situation with a couple of the other lads.
Are you able to tell us who they are?
No.
In terms of Bruno, he's obviously had that for a while now. It looks like it's frustrating him at times. How sort of big a job is it for the medical team to deal with that and make sure he's okay to go again?
Yeah, I think that there's obviously a slight issue there where he's twisted his ankle initially. I think it was quite a nasty injury, and when he has an action in a game whether it's a kick or a twist, there's a slight bit of pain in his ankle for a period of time, and then it really settles down quite quickly. So he's in consultation with the medical team. I think he went through a spell where 2 weeks it didn't bother him at all. Obviously aggravated it again on Sunday. We don't see it being a long-term problem, but that's for the medical team and Bruno really to hopefully find a solution.
It feels, since you've arrived as manager, a lot of the players who were perhaps struggling maybe for confidence beforehand have just evolved and in different times played great. We spoke about Joe Linton a lot, we spoke about Fabian Schär, Sean Longstaff. It feels like it's almost Jacob Murphy's turn right now because he didn't play too much earlier in the season. What have you made of his sort of transformation since you arrived at the club?
Yeah, and transformation, I've always thought Jacob had very special talents and abilities. He's a very quick, very good 1v1 player. I've always preferred him, I think, on the right-hand side rather than the left. And I think I said in the press conference, I can't remember when it was, that consistency, I think, of selection has helped him. Now, he's a versatile player. He can play a number of positions. That is a strength. But I think for Jacob himself, just to have that consistency of training in the same position and playing in the same positions definitely helped him. And delighted to see him get the 2 goals. I mean, the second goal was a special finish. And he is capable of that. We see his finishing is of a really high level, so it's about getting himself in those positions as often as possible. Just
finally from me, I wonder if you'll watch the Arsenal-Man City match tonight and what you make of the battle at the top of the Premier League and what it says for our competition. Yeah, I will be watching it, of course. I think very interested in the game tactically, and two brilliant teams, 2 great managers. So it's been interesting from a manager to watch it and try and pick things from it. I've got no prediction for you because that's impossible to do, but it will be a great game for the Premier League. Thanks, Eddie. Cheers.
Hi, Eddie. Keith mentioned Jacob there. He said he was feeling juicy on Sunday. I know you've talked about enjoying the game, watching it back. It must have given a coach immense satisfaction to watch, especially the first 21 minutes.
Yeah, as I say, the goals. I think the goals are not they're the most important aspect of the game, of course, but they're, from a coach's perspective, you can get loads of different types of goals. You can get scrappy goals. They're all the thing of beauty because they're the thing that matter. But when you actually get goals that are beautiful and really well created and finished, which the majority of the goals were, that does give me a lot of pleasure. It gives me a lot of pleasure for the players that have delivered it. You know, Joe Willock's pass, Alex's 2 finishes, Jacob's strike. Yeah, so yeah, that was really pleasing to see.
There are those sorts of scenes that fans at St James's haven't seen in God knows how many years, you would say. There were a few scenes where I think there was a woman running with a flag down the stand that went a little bit viral. Are Newcastle United fans on days like that on a completely different level, do you believe?
Yeah, I think when you sample the atmosphere on a consistent basis, it's an incredible place to play football. I've said that many times, but it does elevate you. I think the crowd elevated us on Sunday to another level that we haven't been at. And that's what you want. You want to create a hostile atmosphere for the opposing supporters, opposing players. You want to try and elevate your own team, and you want to try and create an environment that no one wants to come and play. And touch wood, so far this season, I think by and large we've created that, and it's a great thing to be part of.
So on the pitch, you said that that's kind of a glimpse of what Newcastle United can do. I can't believe I'm asking this after Sunday, but what more can Newcastle do? What areas are there to improve that?
I think when you look at the performance as a whole and the team as a whole, I think we've got a long way to go to be the team that we want to be. Definitely huge improvements from my time here, from day one to now, huge improvements. But we want more, and we want to continue to evolve in different ways. And yeah, I've got plans and ideas in my head of where we want to go.
I was seeing a statistic that Newcastle have had, I think, more touches in the opposition box with Barcelona, Napoli, European sides like that this season. How have you managed to get this team to rediscover that ruthless edge to their game?
I think it's a constant process. It's always evolving. So through our training and everything that we try to deliver to the players on a daily basis, we're always trying to improve how we deliver the ball up the pitch. There's a lot of work that goes into it. Obviously the players deserve a huge amount of credit for stats like that, because it's the mentality of the team has to be right. We have to always want to attack and to try and impose ourselves and to try and score, but do it in a controlled way where we don't lose our balance or control in the game. So it's a good stat to hear.
It's obviously helped up top. It's now 3 players on double figures this season. Is there a bit of healthy competition, healthy crack between Callum, Miggy and Alex to see who's going to finish top scorer, and how much will that help the group as a whole, I suppose?
I'd probably say you would hear Callum quite a lot talking about stuff like that. Miggy and Alex, they're different characters, so I think they're probably a bit different in their thought processes, but Callum's an out-and-out goal scorer and always wants to be at the top of every goal scoring chart there is, and I think that's what's elevated him in his career to what he's done. From my perspective, it's about the team and making sure that we continue to be as clinical as we were on Sunday. If we can get more players up there, or whoever ends up at the top of the charts, doesn't really bother me. It's about the team.
And just finally from me, it was a weird sort of game, I suppose, at Goodison Park last season, with not just how the game turned out, but the protest as well. What lessons were learned from that game in that kind of febrile atmosphere at Goodison last season, would you say?
Yeah, I thought we handled it pretty well for the majority of the game. As you said, the protest incident, I thought, probably knocked us more than them. We never really fully recovered from that moment. Not sure that's something you can prepare for, but it happened. Probably the most disappointing thing from last year was when we went to 11 v 10 and we didn't control the game in the way that we wanted. That's when they scored their goal. So lessons were learned from actually how that goal was conceived. So we did a lot of work off the back of that, and hopefully it made us a better team for the experience.
Thanks, Ed.
No problem.
Luke, do you want to jump in?
What, a seat?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry.
That'd be nice, because you were sort of putting me off in the corner there. Lost my...
How odd there, all these people that are centre on that side.
Thank you, broadcasters, David.
Eddie, with Anthony, if he's involved, is it that old cliche about playing the game and not the occasion?
Yeah, I think it's staying very present and not thinking too much. Just play the game, which is easier said than done in that environment where probably all eyes will be focused on him. So I don't want it to become a big talking point in the game. For me, it's not important. It's important for Anthony, and it's important that he comes through the game in a good way. But it's important as the team functions and that we show up ourselves.
And just generally, as a manager, you've done it the hard way, worked yourself up. Does that make situations like this, when you're doing so well, all the more precious?
Yeah, certainly I appreciate everything that's happening at the moment, as you say. When I look back and think back to some of the different seasons I've had as a manager and the experiences I've had, I wouldn't change it. I definitely wouldn't change a second of it, because I think I've learned so much through loads of differing campaigns, and you know the lower leagues is an unbelievable place to learn and to enjoy your football, and I think that's what makes English football so incredibly good. The pyramid that we have, I think, is exceptional. But those experiences are brilliant, and it's led to me to be in this position now, and I'm loving every second of what we're doing this year.
Miles?
Just give us a quick update on Sir Maximum. I believe he's obviously back at the training ground, which is good ahead of the game.
Yeah, he's back. He's working hard to try and get fully fit, and yeah, we're pleased to have him back.
So, as you said at the weekend, this is too early.
Yeah, it's too early. Yeah.
And obviously, you've got strong options on the bench. I know you've got some injury issues, but can you change a team that's as 1-6-1?
You can do anything you want, but you've got to make sure you don't do anything that harms the momentum. But every game is so different, as I say. So we try and make the right decisions for this game, which will be a unique one.
Jordan, just on the Anthony Gordon situation, do you have to be mindful of the hostile reception towards him and how that would potentially impact the team as well as the individual as well?
Yes, definitely. But I don't necessarily know what I can do about that to change it, if that makes sense. So yes, you don't want to do anything or have anything that impacts the team, which is the most important thing, as I say. So this is something that's sort of surrounding the game, but it's not influencing the game. In terms of tactical preparation, there's nothing I can do to change that. So something we need to be mindful of, but I'm not too sure, other than concentrating on how we play, what we can do.
In 7 games left now, how eager are you for the team to relish the pressure rather than let it get to them? Because people are talking about European football now, and it is the running, so you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think so far I've seen a team that haven't thought too much about the consequences of doing well. I've seen a team that have just tried to play every game and be successful, and I think that's the best way for success, is to just approach the game on an individual level. What do we need to do to play well in this match? I need to see really high motivation levels, and especially in this game coming up that we have. If we're not motivated, if we're not prepared to do the really ugly side of the game here, this is going to be a difficult match for us. So we need to be absolutely at our best physically, mentally, to get a result in this one.
Luke? Have we seen the best of Anthony Gordon yet in the Newcastle United shirt?
No, I don't think we have. I think there's so much more to come from him. I think we've seen glimpses of potential, glimpses of what he can do. Go back to the Manchester City game, there was moments there. There was a moment there on Sunday when he nearly scored, where he showed his pace on transition, and yeah, he's got so many qualities. But putting that all together for 90 minutes, no, we haven't seen that yet. But January transfers are incredibly difficult because you're joining a new team, it's a totally new way of playing. And for a young player to adjust and adapt to that isn't easy. I've been really, really pleased with him, and I know that he's going to be a high, top quality player for us in the future. And so I've got no doubts it's the right signing for us. And I'm pleased with how he's reacted to the move, because, as I say, it's so difficult for someone so young. But yeah, really pleased.
There's a lot of perception of people in football when you don't really know them. What's he like as a person and a character?
Probably totally different to the perception, whatever that perception is. And certainly from maybe Everton's side, he's diligent, turns up early every day to work on himself, and he's actually put a little bit of bulk on since he's been with us in the gym, and he's been really good on that side, very professional. Excuse me. Wants to stay after, do some work on different aspects of his game. So I've seen a player that's very committed to being a very, very good footballer, and as long as we see that, I know the rest will come.
And sorry I was late, I couldn't actually get parked in the car park due to all the work you haven't done at the training ground. Well, strictly my
Totally understand, Luke, but you need to prepare a little bit better.
Craig.
With regards, and it's a continuation of the theme, but with regards to the selection of Anthony, is it the temptation there to put him in and say, you know, you go and show everyone what you can do back at Everton, versus, you know, what you've already sort of touched on, the danger of it distracting the other 10 players?
I don't think it's either of those things. I think it's me trying to pick the best team to win the game, whether that includes Anthony or not in the starting 11. I don't think it's about Anthony having to prove anything to Everton, or that. I think that would be the wrong way of looking at it from my perspective. So I've got to pick a team that I think has the best tools to hurt them. And that's what I've always done, and that's what I'll always do. I take the emotion out of the decision. You can never pick a team based on one player or what you hope for them. So, yeah, we'll see what happens.
Drastic change of subject, but Champions League. Have you been to many Champions League games?
Is that a leading question? Or?
Let's see where it leads.
I don't think I have, no.
Have you been to any?
I can't think of any off the top of my head, no.
Yeah, so how exciting would that be to have it here next year?
Or have I? I honestly can't remember. I'd love to go to one, so hopefully we can.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be the perfect scenario.
Yeah. I think that's enough for Eddie Courtney for 2 Champions League teams.
Martin?
Sorry, changing subject slightly. Tottenham's owners called today's defeat wholly unacceptable, and their players have reimbursed their supporters and apologised. Certain commentators and certainly fans have suggested that's a bit disrespectful to how well you played. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't see that as a slight on us at all, no. So I've got no issue with that. Tottenham have to do what they have to do with their side of things and respond as they best see. It's got nothing to do with us or a lack of respect there, I don't think.
But you have been a genuine top 6 team all season. Do people inside this country members need to accept that now?
It's difficult for me to comment. I don't know if people don't accept. As I say, I'm not open to what's being communicated and talked about on that level. So all we've got to do is play the games and try and win as many points as possible, and then how people perceive us is up to them.
And how great is the hunger inside the squad to keep growing?
Yeah, I see that. I think that's hugely important, that we don't settle. We don't, after a victory like we had on Sunday, that we sit back and relax with that, and that's the wrong emotion. We have to use all the confidence we gained from the game, the way that we played, the manner of the performance, and use it to fuel us even more, and to try and recreate those moments again. That's the reaction we need.
Lee? Eddie, the atmosphere at Goodison Park, I mean, are you happy for the Everton fans to drain themselves almost, concentrating on Gordon rather than supporting their own team?
I think that's a difficult one for me to answer. They will do what they need to do. I'm not going to try and dictate how they interact with their own team. All I can say is we need to interact with our supporters in the best way possible. So we'll have a brilliant away support again. We need to get them into the game, and we need to make them proud of the team, so that can be our only focus.
I know it's like after the warm-up and away games, you go over and you show your appreciation to them. How much of a unit are the away contingent for you?
Yeah, I think this season they've almost made it like home games for us. I can think of several away games that have been absolutely incredible, and they've been the major force, noise force sort of in the game, and we appreciate them wherever we go. It's the first thing I look for when I come out to the stand, our supporters, and it's a great sight usually wherever they are and the support they bring us.
And I mean, people are always going to throw the money argument at Newcastle. I mean, everyone in this room probably knows you're getting the best out of players that you've inherited. Do you just let that, is it water for ducks back for you now when people talk about money bags in Newcastle? Because you look at the team sheet and there's so many players on there that you've made better.
Yeah, again, you can't control what people say. You can't control the narrative. All you can do is just do the best work you can. If people outside of this room, as you say, want to control a certain theme, that's up to them. But I think as long as the important people know how we're working and what we're doing and how we have worked, I think that's all that matters to me.
And obviously last season you spoke about keeping the identity of the squad. That's really benefited you this season. Is that something again going forward you're going to need to keep? Because again you're now seeing people saying if you get in the Champions League you're going to have to make an overhaul to the squad, but there's so many players in there that deserve that crack at possibly playing in Europe.
Yeah, an overhaul of the squad I think is very difficult to do anyway. It's almost impossible in this day and age with the prices of players. You know, we're not going to have an unlimited budget. We're going to have to be very smart with what we do. Financial fair play will still be there and forcing us to work in a certain way. But I think it's the best way to work. We have to make smart decisions. We have to bring in the right players, not just any players. And certainly the majority of the squad here that have performed so well deserve to be part of our future as well.
Just finally on the Joe Willock pass, I noticed Dan Burns' tackle was celebrated by the bench just as much. Was that probably the souvenir you're going to take away from the season, the build up to that goal, because of the team goal as well?
Yeah, well, there's so many ways. I mean, you look at how goals are scored. It's an incredible number of goals come from innocuous things in a football match. So whether that's a second ball, a tackle, a header, a throw in, and you have to appreciate the beauty in all of those things that look mundane and look normal. So yeah, Dan Burns' part in that goal was crucial. Otherwise, you wouldn't have seen Joe Willock's pass.
Kieran?
Is the attention surrounding Everton a reminder why Newcastle are taking FFP so seriously?
Yeah, I think so. Again, it's difficult to comment on other teams and what's happened at other clubs, but financial fair play has been there for us since I've been at this football club, and I think it will continue to be. Certainly, it's forcing clubs to act in a certain way, and you know they're the rules, so we have to fall in line.
Well, you mentioned earlier you love to have European games in one day. Have you visualised that prospect?
Not really, no. That's for another day. I think for me now, it's just the only thing I'm visualising is it's a lot of distractions today. Is Everton and making sure, we improve on last year's performance there, really.
Martin? You be? No. Chris?
Morning, it's been mentioned already how you've got three players who are sort of rushing to try and be top goal scorer this season. Callum Wilson hasn't been in the team, comes on, keeps scoring. How has he been, though, with not being the starting striker? Because it's been something he's been used to over the last 5 or 6 years, both here at Bournemouth.
Yeah, he's conducting himself very well, so there's been no problem with his demeanour, his mood, but underneath that I can see that he's fiercely determined to get his place back. So I see a player that knows what he wants, and he's working to do that. He's trained very well, I have to say. You know, the response to training, which is the first thing that I look for as the manager, is okay. So how you know, there's loads of different reactions you can give if you're disappointed and upset and angry. But the best response is to train to your best level, and he's done that. And yeah, full credit to Callum, and that's why he's come on the pitch and scored, because he's been in a very good place mentally.
I know you've said before you want competition in all positions, and that's why you brought in Alexander Isak. I mean, longer term going forward, balancing those two people who think that there should be starting striker, I'm sure, how positive and sort of difficult will that also be to maintain going forward? I think there's a report this week suggesting that Callum may push to go if he doesn't get his starting place back. Do you foresee him being able to be in that sort of jostling for that position longer term?
I think how you manage the squad is important. I think the players need to understand that it's a long season, there's loads of games, everyone will get an opportunity to play, and then ultimately it's how the player takes that opportunity as to whether they play or not. So I always say the power is in the player's hands, the manager just picks what he sees. So Callum is hugely respected here, loved by coaching staff, players, and we see his long-term future here, so I certainly wouldn't want to see him leave.
Dom?
Sorry, just one more on Anthony. Have you or will you feel the need to have a one-on-one chat with him just to see how he feels emotionally ahead of the game and how he deals with everything? So.
Yeah, no, I'll speak to him on a one-to-one level, of course, but that wouldn't be abnormal with, in preparation for any game.
Just a different one. Obviously, you signed Garant Kowal in January. It might not be the kind of headline names in the weeks and months to come, but will you be looking to do more of that, kind of taking advantage of untapped markets in the summer?
I think there's a desire from the club, I think, to sign young players and to sign players with huge potential for the future, and maybe use the loan market, and because it's very difficult for us to continually sign with financial fair play ready-made players that can go straight into the Premier League. They come at a huge cost. So to be smart and invest in young players is definitely an avenue for us. But then the quality of recruitment's got to be right, and so it's a big challenge.
It's just a balancing act then of signing players who are going to be ready for next season and whatever competitions you're playing in, and those who might be ready 3-4 years down the line.
Yeah, I think you want a balance. I think ideally you need a mixture of signings in any window. But I do, going back to the point earlier, it won't be an overhaul of the squad. We'll try and be very selective over what we do.
Okay, Harry. Joe Willock, first of all, do you think he's got the credit he deserves this season? And second of all, is he pushing for an England call-up? Do you think is he getting frustrated that he isn't getting an England? Looking for England? How do you sort of see his season?
Yeah, I see his season as one that's steadily got better. I think his performances consistently have improved. I don't sense any frustration with England. I sense a desire to try and represent his country, and I think it's a definite goal of his, but I don't sense a frustration over that. He knows he has to prove over a long period of time that he deserves that call-up. So I think he's working towards that, and he's in a good place at the moment, physically, mentally. His game's at a very good level. Now the challenge for Joe is to maintain that, and if he can nick a few more goals, would be certainly something I'd love to see him do, because he's capable of doing it.
And just on the goal scoring, I mean, when the goals weren't flowing earlier in the season, the chances were still being created. So were you looking at those games that maybe not 6-1, maybe not 6 goals in the game, 5 goals in the game, but that the goals were going to come at some point? There was no panic, and that you carried on just performing that the same way. You expected these goals to flow.
Well, yeah, you hope the goals will come. I think if your team's performing well and you're creating chances, I'm a firm believer that eventually players will start finding the net on a regular basis. I think it's when the team's not creating, you're not cutting teams open, there's a problem. So it's all about the chance creation, and hopefully you have the players that will ultimately be ruthless and finish those moments. We have begun, hopefully, to go into a different phase of our finishing, but the game ebbs and flows very quickly, so we have to, as I say, not get too high and just keep working on what we're doing.